Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another interesting session of second year webinar series of Telangana State Model Schools. Today, in the physics webinar session, we have presenter Mrs. N. Rama Kalyani, PGT Physics, Telangana State Model School, Pudur, Vikarabad District. Madam, in her previous sessions, has presented dual nature of matter and radiation. Now, in today's session, Madam will be introducing and in first year chemistry, various models towards alpha scattering experiment. In this session, or in the continuing sessions about the unit atoms, Madam will be throwing light on various aspects related to atoms. Welcome, Madam.
Thank you, ma'am.
Please take over the session.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Good morning to you. Hello, children. A very warm good morning to all of you. So here we are back with another very interesting and also very, very important concept chapter of our second year, atoms. Children, I hope you have reviewed again the chapter 12, that is dual nature of radiation and matter. Of course, this is going to be a continuation of what we have learned in the 12th chapter. You can understand how physics has been developing since the beginning of the 20th century, that is from the 1900s, how it has developed step by step. Right, children? So let us first view about what we are going to learn in this chapter as a whole. So children, in this chapter, we will have an introduction about the various atomic models that we have been learning since our 9th class. Remember, children, in your 9th class, the various atomic models as proposed by Dalton, J.J. Thomson, and Rutherford, right? And in 10th class, you have learned about Bohr's model, many more. And then we have alpha particle scattering experiment, which gave rise to the model of nucleus, the atomic model, which is called as the Rutherford's model of atom. Then we will study about atomic spectra in this chapter. What is atomic spectra, children? Right. So when there is an emission of energy or absorption of energy by the electron or the atom as a whole, then there is a spectra that is displayed. Children, these are microscopic particles which cannot be viewed even with high resolution microscope. So how are we studying them at all? Children, we are studying them based upon their behavior, which is emitted or which is shown through their emission spectra. Okay, children? So we know that this line spectra or the emission spectra is like a fingerprints. How we have unique fingerprints. Each element has a line spectra by which we are studying them. Then we are having Bohr's model of hydrogen atom, the line spectra of the hydrogen atom, de Broglie's explanation of Bohr's second postulate of quantization. This is our entire chapter, children. Now let us see in detail what we are going to learn today. The learning points for today are, children, we will be introducing or we will be talking about Dalton's atomic theory, the discovery of electrons. Yes, didn't we discuss about this in detail in our previous chapter? Yes, Thomson's model of atom, and we will see what is the reason for emission of radiation, then characteristic spectrum of each element, and Rutherford's model of atom. How did Rutherford come to a conclusion about the model of atom, children? Yes, he proposed the alpha particle scattering experiment, which was later on followed or done by his students. So we will be dealing with the alpha particle scattering experiment in very much detail, children. We will be seeing the experimental setup, the observations and calculations, explanation about why the alpha particles are behaving in a certain manner. We will try to understand an important phenomena called as the impact parameter, the alpha particle trajectory. What is trajectory, children? The trajectory is a path followed by the projectile. Now here alpha particle is the projectile which is moving, which is getting deflected because of some forces, and what path it is following after deflection. That is called as a trajectory, children. So we will be seeing different trajectories, and then we will learn about the distance of closest approach between the alpha particle and the nucleus, and hence because of which we came to know, or we have an estimation about the size of the nucleus. Okay, children. So you can relate this here, children. The alpha particle scattering experiment gave not only a model of the atom, but also it brought us very close to understand the or estimate the size of the nucleus and thus the atom. Okay, children. And then in a nutshell, we will see the postulates of Rutherford model, success of the model and its limitations. Limitations are nothing but drawbacks, children, where the model has failed to explain the atomic behavior. Okay, children. So now let us begin with the very basic things that we have learned earlier. That is the Dalton's atomic model. So Dalton, Sir John Dalton was the first to talk about atom. Okay, so he was the one who said that matter is made up of small indivisible particles called atoms. So according to Dalton, these atoms were indivisible, children. What do we mean by indivisible? You cannot divide them any further. Okay, all the matter that we are talking about, all the matter that we are seeing, solids, liquids and gases, all these are made up of very small particles called as atoms, which are electrically neutral. Electrically neutral means what, children? They do not carry any charge. Neither they have a positive nor a negative charge. The charge is electrically zero. This is what Dalton had proposed. Right, children? Next, what happened? Science does not stop, children. Discoveries were always on their way. So we know that from our previous chapter also that Sir J.J. Thomson and even others had carried out experiments in the electric discharge. Like we had studied about Michael Faraday also, children. Michael Faraday also worked with electrical discharges, right? So he carried out experiments on electric discharges through gases. We have seen in a Coolidge tube, a gas was kept at low pressure, and when current was passed, when it was subjected to high electric field, then there was a discharge of a beam of rays passing from the cathode to the anode. Okay, children. So these cathode rays were discovered as electrons. They were given the name as electrons in 1897 by J.J. Thomson. So we know very well, children, he was awarded Nobel Prize for the same thing. So Sir J.J. Thomson proposed the Thomson's model of atom in the year 1898. That is after studying about the electrons, after seeing that atom may be electrically neutral, but it is not indivisible. Okay, children, it can be divided. Atom can be divided. That means there are some more particles present inside the atom. It is not just completely a single thing which has nothing inside. So Thomson's experiment came out very successfully, showing that some negatively charged particles are coming out of it, which means there are some positive particles also inside the atom. So based upon his understanding, Thomson proposed his model saying that the positive charge is uniformly distributed in the entire atom. In this way, children, the entire pink colored region is the positive region. Okay, children, the signs are just given to show you that it is all positive sign. Okay, children, it is all positive charge. Okay, this is what is Thomson's model. And the negative charges are embedded here and there. They are embedded here and there on the atom. This was the understanding of Thomson. How can we understand this, children? If you have seen a watermelon, when you cut a watermelon and see, you can see the red colored fruit, the juicy fruit pulp of the watermelon. Yes, that is the positive charge according to, you can compare it. That is the positive charge according to J.J. Thomson. And the seeds that are embedded in the fruit, they denote the negative charges. Okay, children? So this also was called as the plum pudding model. Okay, plum pudding is nothing but the plum cake, children. If you have seen in bakeries and all, especially during Christmas and New Year time, they are very much available. Or fruit cakes. If you have seen a fruit cake or a fruit bread, then small fruit pieces are embedded in between the bread, right? So the bread as a whole is a positive charge and the fruit pieces are the negative charges. So hence this came out to be called as the plum pudding model. But sir, children, do you think this is a correct model? Definitely not. So there was something wrong with this model, which was checked by none other than Rutherford himself. So let us see what was a success, at least. To some point, J.J. Thomson's model of atom explained how a substance starts radiating light when heated. So how, children, how can we understand this? See, the light that was observed was nothing but the cathode rays being emitted. Yes, children. So when he said that electrons are embedded inside and when we are heating it, they are getting emitted outside. So electrons are, there are some particles present which are coming out when we are giving them heat. So this was explained by the Thomson's model or the plum pudding model, but it failed to explain the experimental results of the alpha particle scattering. So it failed to explain the result of the alpha particle scattering experiment, which was performed later by Rutherford. Children, I hope you know there is one important and very interesting thing here. J.J. Thomson was a teacher of Rutherford. Okay, children. So here we have a teacher who failed to prove a point and his student took it up and came out with a correct model. Okay, children. So you see, science does not stop anywhere. It keeps growing. So we have seen the success and failure. Explained, J.J. Thomson's model explained how a substance starts radiating light when heated, and it failed to explain the results of the alpha particle scattering experiment. That means why the deviations are taking place in a certain manner. We know how we have learned in 9th class how alpha particles are moving in different directions. Why is this happening? Thus, that could not be explained by Thomson's model. So then first we'll see why actually the emissions are taking place that we have talking about. When substances are heated or when substances are excited by some means, why is it that radiation or emission is taking place? So condensed matter and dense gases emit electromagnetic radiation at all temperatures. So if we take condensed matter, what are condensed matters, children? Solids, right? So the particles of solids are condensed. Yes or no, children? And we can say liquids also, they are condensed to some extent. And if we have some gases which are have high density, then they can emit radiation at all temperatures. Okay, children? And which gives rise to a continuous distribution of several wavelengths. So if they are able to emit radiation at all temperatures, then they will be giving rise to continuous distribution of different wavelengths with different intensities, of course. That means if with a change in temperature, the intensity will change. So this is a continuous spectrum, children. You see the overlapping of the colors. You cannot have a proper divide between the colors here, children. The red is ending, meanwhile the orange is starting, meanwhile yellow is starting. Okay, so this is a continuous spectrum where we don't have any sort of demarcations between the wavelengths. Okay, so this happens in condensed matter or highly dense gases. So it occurs due to oscillation of atoms and molecules, which are governed by the interaction with neighboring atoms or molecules. So children, we know that these particles are vibrating. You can see here, children, in this image, the particles of matter are vibrating in their mean position. This belongs to a solid, children. This is the picture of a solid, the atomic interactions in solids. They are continuously under vibration. Okay, so the emission occurs due to oscillation of atoms and molecules governed by the interaction with neighboring atom or molecules. So because of the interaction with neighboring atoms or molecules, these emissions will also take place. Now suppose we have rarefied gases, children, that is gases with low density that we have used in the Coolidge tube in the discovery of electrons, in the discovery of cathode rays, right? So they are rarefied gases. Rarefied gases means the density is very, very less. So light emitted from rarefied gases heated in a flame or excited electrically in a glow tube have discrete wavelengths only. Now the light that is emitted in this, children, if you have seen the old type of tube light anytime in our childhood, you know, we had a tube light where we could easily see light traveling from a packet of light traveling from one end to other end in a tube light. Yes, the tube light that we use at home. So present day tube lights are we do not observe in them, but in our childhood we used to observe this in the tube light. A new tube light also, light used to pass from one end to other end before we got a continuous stream of light. So this is a mercury vapor light, children. In rarefied gases, we have a discrete set of wavelengths only, and we do not have a continuous spectrum. And we also know, children, as I have discussed earlier, each element, whatever elements are present in our periodic table, each element has its own characteristic spectrum, just like our DNA or our fingerprints. Okay, children, we know that whatever may be the number of human beings present on earth, each of us have a different set of fingerprints, right, children? So each element in the same way has a different characteristic spectrum based on which we are able to identify them. Okay, children? So there is a close relation between the internal structure of an atom and the spectrum of the radiation emitted by it. So whatever spectrum we are observing that is coming from an element. Okay, children, already in your first year, you might have come across the spectral series of hydrogen. So whatever spectrum that is exhibited by an atom, it has to do with its internal structure. Okay, children, its internal structure, that is the placement of the electrons, the number of electrons or the number of neutrons. Okay, so there's a close relation between the internal structure of an atom and the spectrum of radiation emitted by it. So in 1885, Johann Jacob Balmer gave an empirical formula for the wavelengths of group of lines emitted by hydrogen atom. So more about this will learn in the upcoming sessions, children. So for now, this is a spectra of hydrogen that you might have learned in your first year chemistry also. So it was Johann Jacob Balmer. We know Balmer series, children? Yes. So it was he who has proposed, who has given an empirical formula for the calculation of wavelengths for different group of lines emitted by the hydrogen atom. Now let us come to how Rutherford came to his model of atom. That means Rutherford also proposed, he has, he has denied his teacher's model and he came with his own model. So definitely there must be some proof, yes or no. So in 1906, Rutherford proposed the alpha particle scattering experiment to investigate the atomic structure. Okay, so what was the aim of the alpha particle scattering experiment, children? It was to study the internal structure of the atom. He came up with this idea. And in 1911, his two students, Hans Geiger and Ernest Marsden, they were his students. They carried out his experiment. Okay, in 1906, he proposed it, and in 1911, they performed this experiment. So what was the result, children? The result of the alpha particle scattering experiment led to the planetary model or the nuclear model of an atom. Yes, children, we know this from our 9th class, that Rutherford's model is also called as the planetary model or the nuclear model of an atom, because it is from this experiment, it is from his proposal of the experiment that we came to know about the presence of a nucleus. The entire positive charge and most of the mass of the atom is concentrated in a small volume called as the nucleus with electrons revolving around it. So from this experiment, it was proved that the entire positive charge of the atom and the most of the mass of the atom was concentrated in the center of the atom, concentrated at one point, effectively at the center of the atom. So this center was called as the nucleus, and the electrons are revolving around it. So it reminds us of the sun in between, sun in the center, and the planets revolving around it. So that is why it got the name as the planetary model of the atom. Okay, children. So this is a brief, small diagram of the alpha particle scattering experiment, how the experiment was set up. So this is a fluorescent screen, children, here, coated with zinc sulfide. Okay, children, zinc sulfide is fluorescent screen. We have a source of radiation which emits alpha particles, a gold foil. And when this alpha particle hits the gold foil, we are seeing here, children, most of them are going in the same direction without getting any deviation. Some are getting deviated by some angle, and some are rebounding, almost coming back in the same direction. Very few are coming back in the same direction, and most of them, many of them are going in the same direction, undeviated. They are not showing any deviation. They are moving as if there is nothing. Okay, children? Let us see the same, children, here. We have a circular screen, the fluorescent screen. The source of alpha particles, a gold foil. This gold foil taken is very, very thin, children. It's very thin gold foil. Now, when alpha particles are falling on the gold foil, the emitted alpha particles from the gold foil, that is after passing through the gold foil, they are passing in different directions. They are getting deviated in different directions. As you have seen in the previous diagram, children, most of them are moving undeviated. Most of them are moving undeviated. Some are showing some deviation, a little bit of deviation. Very few are coming back, that is moving almost backwards, as if something has stopped them to go forward. Yes or no, children? Something has stopped them to go forward. Okay, so these were the observations made by the team of Rutherford. So let us see what were the apparatus or the materials that they made use of in the experiment. The alpha particle source was Bi-83214, a radioactive source, bismuth. The energy of the beam was 5.5 mega electron volts. Thickness of the gold foil, 2.1 into 10 power minus 7 meters. Just imagine, children, 10 to the power of minus 7 meters, such a thin foil. The fluorescent screen was coated with zinc sulfide. And the rotating detector is connected to a microscope. There is a microscope, children, which records the deviations. So here, this is a top view of you can understand this to be a schematic arrangement or a top view of the experiment here. So this is mainly to make you understand what is scattering angle, children. See, children, this is the source, and these alpha particles are passing through just for collimation to make them a narrow, bring them into a narrow beam of light. They are passed through lead bricks. Okay, children. Now this is the direction of coherent direction of alpha particles. That is, they are not spreading in all directions. They are moving in one direction. The alpha particle moving in one direction, a beam of alpha particle. They are hitting the gold foil here, and this is the actual direction of the alpha particles. Of course, you can see here, most particles will pass through in the same direction. Okay, children? Most particles will pass in the same direction. Some of them will be deviating. Some of them will be deviating. Okay, so this is the angle, children. See, children, this is the actual direction of alpha particles, and here it is say deviated by this, deviated in this direction. So this is the angle, scattering angle or the angle of scattering given by theta. Okay, children. Now, in this direction, there are some particles moving in this direction. These are very, very few, children. Approximately 1 in 8,000 alpha particles will be deviated in this way. That is, if the particles is moving in this way, then the alpha particle will go back like this. Okay, children. So these are very few. Most of them are passing undeviated. Some of them are passing with some angle theta. Okay, children. This is the zinc sulfide screen. And this is the microscope which can rotate along with the screen. And it will record the deviation. Now here we have seen that theta is a scattering angle. And in the graph, the dots represent the data points. That is the theoretical points. Okay, children, as given by the scientists. And the curve is the experimental result. The curve denotes the prediction that atom has a small, dense, positively charged nucleus. So this is the prediction, and the curve is the prediction, and the dots are the experimental data. So you can see, children, there is a very good collaboration between the theory and the experiment that was conducted here. So the curve denotes the prediction that atom has a small, dense, positively charged nucleus. This was the major breakthrough which was attained by this experiment. Children, we have a small video here. Observe this, children. This is supposed to be the gold foil atoms, atomic arrangement of the gold foil. Now, alpha particle beam will start, children. You just keep watching. Right. You are seeing these purple things, children, here. They are nothing but the alpha particle beam. Observe their movements, children, how each of them is moving. Take your time, children. Observe them. We can replay it if you want. Yes, see here, children. The particles that are moving away from the dot, this is nucleus, away from the dot are going straight. You can see here, children, going straight. Right, children? And this is coming closer. It is going bent in one direction. Right? See, the ones that are coming close to the nucleus are bending. Isn't it? This is bending by a larger angle. Yes, children? We'll see it once again. Just see here, children, so much of empty space, and nucleus is so small, isn't it? And you can understand this to be orbits of the electrons, children. Yes or no? Now observe, children, observe the alpha particles. You can see the close ones are bending a lot. Yes? Here also. Yes, just see that. Look at that. Yes. And the ones that are moving away, moving farther away from the nucleus, are moving undeviated. So many particles are moving undeviated. And ones that are coming close to the nucleus are bending in different directions. Yes, children? I hope you understood this. So this is how we have, see this, children. It was coming in this way. It came very close to the nucleus and it bent again. Yes? Here, these are going away from the nucleus, moving farther from the nucleus. So they are going undeviated. Here, this one, children, it came till here. It is a little bit close to the nucleus, so it is getting deflected. Isn't it, children? Here, children, deflection almost by 90 degrees. It came till here and then got deflected. Yes? So, children, you have seen the motion of alpha particles in different directions, passing of alpha particles in different directions, where you are seeing that most of them are passing undeviated. Isn't it, children? So what did we observe in this? What were the observations made in this experiment? In this experiment, most alpha particles passed through the foil without any deviation. That was a major observation we saw. And 0.14% of the incident alpha particles scattered by more than 1 degree. That is a very small percentage of the incident alpha particles, children. They have scattered by more than 1 degree. Otherwise, they were not at all deviating. Most of them are not at all deviating. They are just passing as if nothing is stopping them. Okay, children? Very few, very few of them, that is 0.14% of the alpha particles scattered by more than 1 degree. Okay, children? 1 in 8,000, which is very less again. 1 in 8,000 alpha particles deflect by more than 90 degrees. So more than 90 degrees means, children, almost taking a backward direction. Okay? So this is the straight direction with 0 degrees, 90 degrees. If it is more than 90 degrees means it is coming back. Okay? It is rebounding, coming back. So 1 in 8,000 alpha particles deflect by more than 90 degrees, which shows that something has stopped them to move forward. Maybe there was a wall or anything like that, where these very few alpha particles encountered some obstruction which stopped them from going in the forward direction. To deflect the alpha particles backwards, there must be a largely repulsive force. Yes. So what was blocking their way? In order to stop the alpha particles, there should be a very large repulsive force. Okay, children? Children, in this experiment, as we have seen, they had used a very high energy of alpha particle beam. 5.5 mega electron volt is a very high energy. Okay. Now, alpha particles are positively charged particles. Yes, they are the positively charged particles. When they are moving through a gold foil and some of them are unable to move forward, they're coming backwards, means there is a very large repulsive force that is stopping them. Okay, children, that is repelling them. Okay, so there must be a large repulsive force. What could be that large repulsive force? Here, children, you can understand that what video we have seen just now previously. If you zoom it, then you will get this video. Okay. So here you can understand this to be the nucleus, children, where the orange particles are the protons. Okay. So keep watching, children. Again, we will have a beam of alpha particles. Yes. Now see here, children. Compare the size of the alpha particles to this nucleus. 2 protons. Okay. Compare the size of these alpha particles to this nucleus and how they are moving with respect to the nucleus. Is the nucleus moving, children? Is this object moving? No, it is not moving because it is very heavy. It is very big compared to these. Okay. In our first year physics, we learned about collisions, conservation of momentum. If m is very large, then it cannot move from its place. We'll repeat it, children. So here, again, we are going to observe the same thing, children, how the alpha particles are getting deviated. See, children, the one coming very close are deviated by large angles. Yes. And the ones that are moving away, they're coming away, their deviation is not much. They're almost moving in straight lines. The ones that are coming close to the nucleus are getting deviated by very large angles. Okay, children, that is what I wanted to show here. And also the comparison of size of the nucleus to the individual helium atoms. Okay. Individual helium atoms with just 2 protons. Okay, children, I hope you understood this. So the reason for the large repulsive force is the massive positive charge which is present at the center of the atom. Just now we have seen, children, there is a big positive charge present at the center of every atom, which is the cause of the repulsive force which the alpha particles experienced. So what is happening when the alpha particles are trying to come close to the nucleus? Alpha particles are small positively charged particles. Nucleus is a heavy positively charged particle. So when alpha particles are coming close to the nucleus, very close to the nucleus, what is happening? Repulsive forces come into picture. This nucleus is repelling the incoming or the incident alpha particles, and they are moving backwards. Okay, children? If they're going far away from the nucleus cannot affect them. Okay, children? Because there is a certain field area, isn't it, children? Beyond that, the nucleus cannot show its influence. A little bit of distance, small deviation. Very close, immediately pushing it backwards. Right, children? So that is the reason where Rutherford concluded that there must be a presence of a heavy positive charge at the center of the atom. This gave rise to the nuclear model of atom. Rutherford is credited with the discovery of nucleus. So hence we credit Rutherford with the discovery of nucleus. So children, it was later in this experiment itself, it was calculated. The size of the nucleus was also calculated, how we will be seeing it. The size of the nucleus came out to be 10 power minus 15 meters to 10 power minus 14 meters. Can we even imagine the size, children? 10 to the power of minus 15 meters. That is 1 divided by 10 to the power of 15 meters. Yes, children, 1 divided by 10 to the power of 15 meters. What is the value of it? We can't even imagine in the wildest dreams, children. That is the size of the nucleus. And size of the atom, 10 power minus 10 meters. Right, children? So that means an atom is about 10,000 to 1 lakh times greater than the size of the nucleus. It is about 10,000 to 1 lakh times larger than the size of the nucleus. So we also have another comparison, children. If you imagine the atom to be the size of your classroom, okay, children, if the atom is can be taken as the size of the classroom, then the size of the nucleus will be the size of a pinhead in the classroom. A pinhead, gundusudi, what we call, okay? The size of the pinhead. Can you find a pinhead in your classroom, children? So that is the comparison of the size of the atom and size of the pinhead. That is how we are saying that most of the atom space is empty. Most of the atom space is empty. That is the reason most of the alpha particles are moving undeviated, as if nothing is stopping them. Yes, nothing is stopping them because there is nothing actually. Yes, there are only electrons moving in the orbits, which are very, very small compared to the alpha particles, and they will not show any effect on the alpha particle. So deflection of alpha particles is due to the presence of positive charge in the atom. So here, children, this is the nucleus. You can see different beams of alpha particles. We have different alpha particles, a beam of alpha particles. If a alpha particle is moving straight close to in the same direction as the center of the nucleus, then it will go back undeviated. Okay, and different alpha particles will be deviating in different directions with different scattering angles compared to the distance, how much close they are to the nucleus. They are going to the nucleus. You can see the last one, children, here. The last one going undeviated because it is very far away from the nucleus. So scattering of an alpha particle depends upon its distance of closest approach. So the angle by which the alpha particle is getting scattered, it depends upon how close it is going to the nucleus. Now let us try to calculate the force of repulsion, which is acting between the nucleus and the alpha particle. So what are alpha particles, children? Alpha particles are the nuclei of helium atom. Okay, so there's a difference here, children. Helium atom and alpha particles are different in this way. Alpha particles are just the nuclei of the helium atom. Charge on alpha particle is 2e. Isn't it, children? 2e, that is 2 protons. charge on the gold nucleus is Ze. What is Z, children? Yes, atomic number, the number of protons in the atom or the nucleus. So for gold, Z is equal to 79. The nucleus of gold is much heavier than the alpha particle, obviously, because it is 79 here, along with, of course, neutrons. And here it is only 2. Helium atom has only 2 protons and 2 neutrons, helium nucleus. And whereas the gold has 79 protons. Because of its heavy mass, it remains stationary during the scattering. Now we know mass directly related to inertia. So alpha particles being very, very small, even if they're coming very close to the nucleus, the repulsive forces are not making the nucleus move because the nucleus is very, very heavy. So the force according to Coulomb's law is given by F is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught 2E, that is Q1 ZE Q2. Charge of the alpha particle, charge of the nucleus, gold nucleus, by R square, where R is the distance between the alpha particle and the nucleus. Right, children? R is the distance between the alpha particle and the nucleus. That is the nearest, the closest distance to between the alpha particle and the nucleus is R. And E is the charge on the proton. We know this. Now we will define, children, impact parameter. This is a very, very important thing, children. Impact parameter and scattering angle, the relation between them. Impact parameter is defined as the perpendicular distance of the velocity vector of the alpha particle from the center of the nucleus when it is far away from the atom. Now, we are imagining that, children, alpha particle is at a certain distance from the atom or the nucleus. Right? This is this yellow colored ball here is the nucleus. Imagine the alpha particle is here initially. Now, when the alpha particle is moving in this direction, as it is coming closer and closer to the nucleus, its path will change. This is called its trajectory, children. It will not go straight because it is close to the nucleus, and the nucleus repulsive forces will be already starting on it. Okay? The nucleus will be already showing its repulsive forces. So it will take a bend. It will take a bend in a certain way. Right, children? Now, where did this start? The alpha particle started here. And let us imagine a line passing through the center of the nucleus. Okay, children? A line passing through the center of the nucleus. The perpendicular distance between these two. This is the velocity vector, children. If you imagine a straight line here, the yellow colored line, this is the velocity vector. And the line passing through the center of the nucleus. So the perpendicular distance between the velocity vector of the alpha particle and the center of the nucleus, when the alpha particle is far away from the atom, Why? Because we are calculating impact parameter when it is far away with the repulsive forces, when repulsive forces are not acting on it. So this distance is called as the impact parameter, children. Okay, this is called as the impact parameter and it is denoted by small b. Now, scattering angle. Scattering angle is the angle by which the alpha particle gets deviated. Now, if you see, children, if I extend this direction of this velocity vector, the green line, if I extend, let us say the alpha particle should have been moving in this direction, the yellow dotted line. If nucleus was not there, then alpha particle should have been moving in this direction. But now it is moving in this direction because of the presence of nucleus. Okay. So there is a bend here, children, between the actual path and the, this is the actual path and this is the imaginary path if nucleus was not present. So this angle is called as the scattering angle. Angle by which the alpha particle has moved or deviated from its actual path is called as the angle of scattering, which is denoted by theta. This alpha particle trajectory, children, each alpha particle has a different trajectory depends upon how close it is going to the nucleus or depends upon the value of the impact parameter. If this is the target nucleus, children, then we see different ways in which the alpha particle moves. The one which is coming very close to the nucleus goes back in the same direction. The one which is going a little bit far, it moves in this direction. Similarly, each alpha particle has its own direction. Right, children? So this is called as the alpha particle trajectory, which primarily depends upon the impact parameter. The trajectory of an alpha particle depends upon the impact parameter B. That is the path of the alpha particle. Whether it is getting deviated or not depends upon the value of the impact parameter. A given beam of alpha particles is scattered in different directions for different values of B. So, as we have seen, alpha particles, in a beam of alpha particles, there are a number of alpha particles. So, each alpha particle is scattered in a different way, which is based upon the value of B. Now, children, observe this animation carefully, children. If it is a head-on collision means the centers of these two, the alpha particle, the red colored dot is the alpha particle and the yellow colored big dot is the nucleus of the gold atom. Okay, children? If at all, it is a head-on collision, which means the centers of these two will be collinear. If the centers of these two are collinear, then what happens? Here I am taking B is equal to 0, approximately equal to 0. Okay, that is the impact parameter value is 0. Then what is happening? Observe it, children. What happened? It went and it came back, isn't it? It went and it came back, right? Observe again, children. Right. So for B is equal to 0, what is happening? For B is equal to 0, the scattering angle is 180 degrees. Isn't it, children? This is the direction of the alpha particle and it is moving in the reverse direction, means the angle of scattering is 180 degrees, approximately 180 degrees. For a head-on collision, the impact parameter value is almost equal to 0 and theta, that is the scattering angle, is 180 degrees, approximately 180 degrees. Now let us go for the next value of B. If B is not equal to 0, B is a small non-zero value. Okay. Now I'm taking B has some numerical value but not 0 and it is small. That means it will go close to the nucleus. It will go a bit closer to the nucleus but not like the previous one. At the time, what will happen to theta? Now observe here, children. How did it go? Right. If you observe here, children, it moved in this way, right? It moved in this way and took a bend here as it was approaching the nucleus. Once again, you want to see, children? Right. So it almost took a 90 degrees bend, children. It came very close to the nucleus and it bent away from here, right? So here, for small values of B, that is the small distance of B, the theta is less than pi and it is a large value. It is a big value, but less than pi. Okay, children? But less than 180 degrees because it is not going back in a linear direction. It is bending from here. Okay. So you can say that it will be between 90 and 180. Now what happens if B increases? For impact parameter very large, that is if the alpha particle is supposedly moving very far away compared to the nucleus, then what will happen? Observe the red colored ball, children, that is the alpha particle for large B value. Going almost undeviated, yes or no? It's not showing any deviation. See again. Right. It is not showing any kind of deviation as it is moving away from the nucleus because of large B value. Because of large B value, the alpha particle is moving almost undeviated, which means that theta is approximately equal to 0. Isn't it, children? Theta is approximately equal to 0. So what we have seen here is, children, as impact parameter value increases, the scattering angle decreases. Yes? So children, I hope you understood this relation here. We will try to analyze what we have seen till now. The number of alpha particles undergoing head-on collision is very, very small. Okay, children? Because we know the nucleus is very, very small. The particles that are actually encountering the nucleus very close by are very, very less. So the number of alpha particles undergoing head-on collision is very small. The mass of the atom is concentrated in a very small volume, that is the nucleus. Okay, because whatever charge, positive charge is present, it is present inside the nucleus only, and that is only causing the repulsion. Rutherford's experiment successfully determined an upper limit to the size of the nucleus. So through this experiment, the maximum limit of the size of the nucleus could be estimated. Children, this is an important question, children. Impact parameter and the scattering angle. So this was calculated by Rutherford himself. It gives us a relation between the impact parameter and the scattering angle. So here B is given by ZE square cot theta by 2 whole divided by 4 pi epsilon naught half mv square. What is half mv square? Yes, it is the kinetic energy of the alpha particle. Okay, children. Here B is the impact parameter, theta is the scattering angle, Z is the atomic number, E is the charge on the alpha particle, M is the mass of alpha particle, V is the speed of the alpha particle. So as V is the speed of alpha particle, M is the mass of the alpha particle, half mv square is the kinetic energy of the alpha particle. Right, children? So this is an important relation between impact parameter and scattering angle, which is an expected question also. So you have to go through this carefully. Now, children, as I have told you, that Rutherford's experiment also successfully gave us or estimated the size of the nucleus, the approximate radius of the nucleus. So let us see how they could find it out. So let us say m is the mass of the alpha particle, v is the speed of the alpha particle, and the speed and kinetic energy of the alpha particle decreases as it approaches the nucleus. Why, children? When the alpha particle is coming closer to the nucleus, let us say this is the nucleus, as the alpha particle is coming closer to the nucleus, they are saying its speed and kinetic energy decreases. But why? Yes, it is because of the repulsive forces. The nucleus is saying stop. Yes, the nucleus is stopping the alpha particle. So as it is coming closer and closer, the repulsive forces of the nucleus are starting, and it is trying to repel the alpha particle. So because of this, the velocity and hence the kinetic energy of the nucleus of the alpha particle are decreasing. And at a certain distance RO from the nucleus, it stops and retraces its path. So here we are considering the head-on collision, children. The alpha particle is coming very close to the nucleus. It has come till a distance, a small distance, from where it will stop and go back. Okay. At a certain point, it will stop and it will go back. So this distance where it came very, very close to nucleus is RO. It is taken as RO, and it is called as the distance of the closest approach. It is called what, children? The distance of the closest approach. The least distance which could be between alpha particle and the nucleus, that is denoted by RO, called as the distance of the closest approach. At RO, the kinetic energy of the alpha particle converts to electrostatic potential energy. So how it happens, children? Let us see. We know that energy converts from one form to another form. So the kinetic energy of the alpha particle is getting converted into electrostatic potential energy, that is given by half mv square is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught 2e into Ze. 2 is the charge on the alpha particle, Ze is the charge on the gold nucleus, RO is the distance of closest approach. So RO is, that is, if you bring the subject here, RO, I can bring half mv square here. Okay, we can bring the half mv square here in the denominator. So Rho is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught 2ze square. From here, 2ze square by half mv square. This half mv square. What is this half mv square, children? It is nothing but the kinetic energy of the alpha particle. So same equation I am rewriting 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into 2ze square by ek. That is the kinetic energy of the alpha particle. Where 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught we know is taken as numerically 9 into 10 to the power of 9 Newton meter square Coulomb inverse square. This is the value of 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. The distance of closest approach is of the order of 10 power minus 14 meters. So by substituting all the known values here, children, we know they are all known values. We know the Z value. Yes, we know the charge E, electronic charge value. And we have taken 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. Okay, kinetic energy of the alpha particles is in our hands, whatever energy we are giving it. So when substituting all the known values, the distance of closest approach came to be at the order of 10 power minus 14 meters, right? That is, this close alpha particle can go to the nucleus, which means that radius of the nucleus should be less than 10 power minus 14 meters. Obviously, children, isn't it? The alpha particle can go this much close. It can go very much close to the nucleus, which is of the order of 10 power minus 14 meters. So the radius of the nucleus should be less than this value, 10 power minus 14 meters. So it is assumed to be around 10 power minus 15 meters. The radius of the nucleus is assumed to be around 10 power minus 15 meters, which is called as Fermi. Okay, children, it is called as Fermi. Radius of the nucleus is measured in Fermi. Fermi is also a scientist, children. So 1 Fermi is equals to 10 to the power of minus 15 meters. Now, children, we have seen a lot of detail about the experiment conducted by Rutherford and his team. So let us now try to put them all systematically, whatever we have learned about this experiment and what was the ultimate result of this experiment. So these are the postulates of Rutherford's model of atom. The entire positive charge and most of the mass of the atom is concentrated in a very small volume called the nucleus. Right, children? So according to this experiment, most of the atomic space is empty and a small positive, there is a heavy positive charge that is at the center of the atom. That is entire positive charge and almost the entire mass, most of the mass. Okay, children? The electrons are distributed around the nucleus. They are revolving around the nucleus. Most of the space inside the atom is empty. This is also one of the postulates that we have seen in our videos also very clearly, children. Electrons are revolving around the nucleus in circular orbits like planets revolving around the sun. So if this is the nucleus, then electrons are revolving around the nucleus in the form of planets revolving around the sun. Therefore, this is also called as the planetary model. Electrostatic force of attraction provides the centripetal force. So how is it possible for the electrons to be moving around the nucleus? It is the electrostatic force because of which the electrons are getting the centripetal force. Exactly like how moon is revolving around Earth. It is the gravitational force of Earth which is giving centripetal force to the moon to revolve around the Earth. Right, children? Same thing here. Now, the successful points of Rutherford's model. The large angle scattering of alpha particles through thin foils could be explained. So we have seen in detail, children, why some alpha particles are moving undeviated, some are getting deviated with large angles. Okay. So the classification of elements in the periodic table on the basis of their atomic number instead of atomic weight was justified. So children, we have learned in our 10th class periodic classification. First, according to Mendeleev, atomic weight was considered, and even the previous classifications also considered atomic weight as a basis of classification. But later on, it was taken as atomic number instead of atomic weight. So Rutherford's model justified this. That is, atomic use of atomic number is much more convenient than atomic weight. Now let us see the limitations or the drawbacks of Rutherford's atomic model, children. what will happen? So Rutherford said that electron is revolving around the nucleus. Okay, children? Electron is revolving around the nucleus. But according to classical electrodynamics or classical mechanics, electron being a charged particle, if it is moving continuously, then it is accelerated. It should be continuously accelerated. Circular motion is possible only if there is a continuous acceleration, children. Okay, don't forget this point. Circular motion is possible only when there is a continuous acceleration. And if a charged particle is continuously accelerated in this way, then it should be emitting radiation in the form of electromagnetic waves. This is theory according to classical electromagnetic theory. Okay, so an accelerated charged particle emits radiation in the form of electromagnetic waves. Energy of the electron has to decrease. So if it is emitting radiation in this way, the electron must be losing energy. So what will happen? By doing this, the electron losing energy means what will happen? The nucleus will start dominating on the electron. That is, the electron is becoming weaker and weaker by emitting radiation. The nucleus will try to attract the electron towards itself, because of which the electron should be moving in a spiral direction and should collapse into the nucleus. If this happens, then the atom should not be there only, because atom will entirely collapse. Isn't it, children? But atom is very much stable. Because atom is stable, today we are sitting here and having a class. Yes or no? If atom did not have the stability, then there is no question of the universe only. So then, such an atom would not be stable. If Rutherford's point was to be taken into consideration, then it should not be possible. The atomic stability is not possible. So let us see here in this animation how what is the failure of Rutherford's model actually. So we have a positive nucleus here, children, and this is an electron. This should be the behavior of the electron. Both are gone. Yes or no, children? The positive and the negative both will be gone. The atom will be collapsing as a whole. Once again, you want to say it? Yes, have a look, children. How this is spiraling. This will be how the electron will behave if it is moving continuously, if it is emitting energy. Okay? It is coming closer and closer to the nucleus, going into the nucleus. Both of them will collapse. So, but this is not happening. Okay, children? This is not happening. And more limitations. Frequency of the electromagnetic waves emitted by the revolving electrons is equal to the frequency of revolution. So if at all electrons were emitting radiation, if at all electrons were giving off radiation, then the frequency of that electromagnetic waves should be equal to the frequency of revolution of the electron. Okay. Now, as the electrons were spiraling inwards, their frequency should change continuously, and they should emit light frequency also changes. Yes or no, children? We are saying it depends upon the frequency of revolution. Now, because of this limitation, what we are saying, the electron should be spiraling inwards. If it is spiraling inwards, its frequency of revolution should change, and the frequency of the electromagnetic radiation should also change. Yes or no? It should change continuously. So this should give a continuous spectrum. Okay, this should be giving a continuous spectrum, but the spectrum emitted by atoms or electrons is a series of sharp lines. What we have seen in the hydrogen spectrum, we have got a clear line spectra. Yes, it is not a continuous spectra. But if Rutherford's model was to be taken, this point was to be taken into consideration that electrons are revolving around and they're emitting energy, then this is what will happen. They should be emitting continuous spectrum, but they are not emitting continuous spectrum. An atom exhibits a line spectra, which is a series of sharp lines. Rutherford's model failed to explain the line spectra of atoms. This is the major failure of the Rutherford's atomic model. Right, children? So we have come to the end of today's session. Before leaving, let us have a fast review of what we have learned today. We have earlier known about this, children. Atom is electrically neutral. Thomson's model suggested that the entire positive charge is spread in the atom and electrons are embedded on it. This model failed to explain the scattering of alpha particles by a gold foil. Later, Rutherford's alpha particle scattering experiment suggested the presence of a massive positive charge at the center of the atom, which was called as the nucleus. Most of the space in the atom is empty. This was the postulate of Rutherford's model. Electrons revolve around the nucleus like planets around the sun. The impact parameter is defined as the perpendicular distance of the velocity vector of the alpha particle from the center of the nucleus when it is far away from the atom. This we have understood, children, for various values of B also. The trajectory of the alpha particle depends upon the impact parameter. The trajectory is nothing but, children, the path taken by the alpha particle when it is moving through the foil. The size of the nucleus is determined by the distance of the closest approach. So how much close it could go, the alpha particle during the head-on collision, it gave rise to the estimation of the size of the nucleus. And then we have seen briefly about the postulates, the success and the limitations of Rutherford's atomic model. So before leaving, children, let us have some questions, try to answer them. Important question. What is the difference between alpha particle and helium atom, children? I have explained this to you. We have this point also in our slides. What is impact parameter and angle of scattering? How are they related? I have told you, children, very, very important question. The formula is present in this. Children, somehow this is not available in your textbook, but please make a note of this from our PowerPoint, from our class only. The formula that I have given you for B. Okay, children, the relation between impact parameter and angle of scattering. What is distance of closest approach, and explain how it helps to determine the size of the nucleus. This we have seen, children, distance of closest approach, RO, define it, and how it helped to find out the size of the nucleus. Give a brief account of Thomson's model of atom. What are its limitations? Describe Rutherford's model of atom and mention its successes and limitations. Just now we have seen. Describe the Geiger-Marsden experiment on scattering of alpha particles. How is the size of the nucleus estimated in this experiment? Okay, children, you have to explain the experimental setup in detail and how the experiment was carried on and how it gave rise to the estimation of the size of the nucleus. So children, I hope you have understood this class. Please have a review of this class. Whenever you have a doubt, you can post it in the comment box also, children. Thank you for today.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for the detailed explanation about the alpha scattering. Like the videos what you have shown and the explanation you have given have thrown more light into the experiment conducted by Rutherford, the alpha scattering experiment. It was indeed excellent presentation by you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Children, once again, you keep on revisiting this the sessions, prepare your own notes, and keep learning and keep growing. Thank you, one and all.